on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about The Evil Dead from 1981, I believe, directed by Sam Raimi and starring Bruce Campbell and a few other actors whose names I don't know. I think most of them pretty much went into retirement, kind of left the acting scene after this movie. But this is Sam Raimi's first feature-length film, and I believe also Bruce Campbell's first feature-length film. And at one time, I considered this to be my favorite horror movie, and I don't know if I would still call it that. I'm not sure what my favorite horror movie is, but I have cooled a little bit on this movie over the years. I still like quite a bit about it, but I think what I like more about it is the backstory about how this movie got made. Sam Raimi was fresh out of film school. He and Bruce Campbell had done some shorts together, and they decided to make a feature-length film. My understanding is Sam Raimi isn't even that big of a horror fan, but horror is easy and is very likely to be financially viable, and so for their first outing, they decided to make a horror movie, and they had to get funding from local business people. They weren't able to get all the funding that they wanted. They figured, you know, with this number, we will barely be able to make the movie that we want to make, and then they still weren't able to make that much money from their funding. Bruce Campbell had to put his family's property on collateral so that they could get some more money to finish making the movie. They ran out of money halfway through, so a lot of the crew ended up having to leave, and so whoever was left, they ended up having to finish the movie on their own. People got injured. They had to stay there on location, so if you've seen the movie, it is a shack in the middle of the woods, and the people making the movie were having to stay there on location. They didn't have plumbing, so they weren't able to bathe. People got sick. People got injured. It is incredible that this movie got made. And then getting into the movie itself, they are able to do a lot with a little. Like I said, very small budget for this movie. And I will say the characters in this movie are incredibly flat. You don't know anything about any of these characters. I don't know how many times I have seen this movie, and I can't even tell you most of their names. The only one whose name I know is Ash, or Ashley as he's sometimes called. And you learn stuff about him in later movies. In this, here's what you know. You have Bruce Campbell, and then he has a sister, and he has a girlfriend, and then there's another guy, and then he has a girlfriend. That's all you know about them. The other guy is a little bit more of a class clown than Bruce Campbell's character, and if you've never seen this movie before, if you somehow don't know anything about the world of Evil Dead, then you would go into this movie and you would think, okay, this Bruce Campbell character, he's kind of a little bit of an idiot. He's not going to be able to survive when all these demons start attacking them. This other guy, he's a little bit closer to a macho, manly, heroic archetype, and so he's going to be the one who's going to have to step up and fight all these evil things. It's kind of sort of like the first Alien movie in that regard, how when you watch that movie in 1970 whenever, all the other actors in that movie were more well-known than Sigourney Weaver, so having her be the final girl was a big twist back then. But if you watch that movie now and you know anything about the Alien movies, it's a given, okay, here's our main character. Kind of sort of the same thing going on here. And if I had anything to complain about with this movie, it's that pretty much all of these characters are very underwritten. Having said that, this movie is incredibly efficient. It's only an hour and a half long, and that includes credits. It does not waste any time getting into the horror aspect that people wanted to come and watch. And so it doesn't really waste a lot of time characterizing all the characters that are coming to this cabin. In fact, we don't really know why they come here. They're just here to have a good time. We don't even know who owns the cabin. Where did this Book of the Dead, I don't think they call it the Necronomicon. I cannot remember what they call it. They call it something. It's a book that's bound in human flesh. Where did this book come from? There's a guy who left a recording, and he found it in the city of Kandar. We don't really know where the city of Kandar is, but I'm assuming he found the book there. Where's the guy? We don't know. There's a lot of questions that are left up in the air, and it's okay. It's okay that those things are not answered. You're just here to see some really, really grotesque horror. And with a very small budget, I cannot emphasize how small of a budget they were working with here. They are able to accomplish a lot of really gross, scary stuff in this movie. There are times where I wouldn't say I'm scared, but I'm definitely grossed out. I mean, certainly this movie, if I went to a cabin in the middle of the woods and I found a book, I would be scared. I definitely wouldn't read from it. I definitely wouldn't turn on a recorder, a tape recorder that I found there. I would run and leave. But I wouldn't so much say this movie is scary, but it does have a lot of gross out stuff. Do not try to watch this movie while you're eating your lunch. I did attempt that, and I realized, oh wait, I can't do this. I had just gotten into the part where the first person is possessed in this, and I was eating, it was like waffles. It wasn't even anything really gross, but like, you know, if it was like soup, or, you know, at one point someone loses an arm and there's like milk spurting out, so if you're eating cereal, you know, don't do those things. Don't be like me. Just do something, watch some Barney, something very, you know, very good with eating your food. But anyway, a lot of really gross stuff here, and I am so impressed that they're able to make it all work with so little budget. There are times where there are things where you're like, oh hey, that's a little silly. You know, footage is a little grainier here, or there's a little bit of a jump cut where, like, you know, he may be looking like this, and then suddenly he's like this, but you don't get to see any of the movement. Like they lost a little bit of footage there or something, and that's something that you see a lot from movies from like the 1930s. You see that a whole lot from movies from that time period. Not so much movies in the late 70s, early 80s, but I'm willing to forgive quite a bit with this movie, considering what all they had to go through to make this movie. I'm even willing to forgive that these characters have nothing going on in this movie. I'm willing to forgive that because they are able to do so much with what little they had in this movie. If they had lengthened the movie, it might not have gotten made. If they added time so that they could flesh out these characters a little bit more, it's very likely they wouldn't have been able to have finished it because they were running out of money and they wanted to really grab your attention with all of this horror stuff in the last half of the movie. Anyway, I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say about this movie. You know, I did talk a little bit earlier this month. I can't remember what movie I was talking about where I mentioned, like, The Rules. Was it 3 or was it They? It was They. The Wes Craven's They, where I talked about that movie. You don't really know what the rules are with the creatures. With this movie, again, I'm kind of a hypocrite here. I like that we don't really know what the rules are, and we're not even sure if it's the rules are being broken or not. Seconds into the movie, we see all of our characters are in a car, and then Bruce Campbell puts his finger on the map and says, we need to be going in this direction. And then the car almost runs into a semi-truck that's coming toward them. And then Bruce Campbell's friend, he's driving and he says, like, hey, it's your car. You know, the wheel, it just jerked out of control. And we see right before that happens, a camera is like zooming through the woods. And it kind of gives you this feeling that there is something or someone that is going through the woods. And then it sees the car down below this cliff on the road. And so, okay, is there some kind of ancient evil that's trying to kill these guys before they even make it to the cabin? And then they get to the cabin, and there's this porch swing that is in the wind. It's knocking against the cabin. And then the guy, not Bruce Campbell, the other guy, he goes up, and then he touches the doorknob, and then it stops. Is this the evil saying, okay, I've got you guys now, you're not going to be able to leave? They haven't done anything yet. It's not until later in the movie where they find the book and they open it up, and then they turn on the recorder, and the recorder has the magic words. In theory, that is what kickstarts all of the evil that's in this movie, but we're not sure if that is what actually kickstarts it or not, because I can't remember when Ash's sister, she gets attacked by the woods, and I can't remember if that is before or after they find the recorder. I think that's after. But even if that is after, then you got these other instances of, hey, this is really weird. Is this just coincidence, or are these guys just screwed from the moment the movie starts? And I kind of like that we don't know the answer to that. I kind of like that it's leaving it a little vague here. In any other movie, I would probably be writing it a little harder for not being super clear with what's going on or what's at stake. But with this movie, I'm kind of willing to let it slide. So yeah, I like this movie. Like I said, I don't know if I would say it's my favorite horror movie, but I do really enjoy this movie. I appreciate it for what the people behind it were willing or were able to do. So that is all that I have to say about The Evil Dead. I hope you guys liked this video, and I will be back tomorrow with another video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.